Katanga book lovers, another delve into my library of music books, and seem to be quite popular because apparently people don't do videos on music books in the VC, which between you and me doesn't surprise me. Anyway, let's start off, shall we? I haven't done my favourite music book of all time yet, and this seems like a good opportunity to show it. But anyway, if you haven't got this book, and you've probably got this, people who know this book, you've either got this cover or you've got loads of other covers. It's been reprinted so many times, this book, and for good reason, because it's an excellent, excellent autobiography. And Art Pepper, I don't know if you know his music, you know, West Coast stuff, he used to play, you know, contemporaries were Chet Baker and Jerry Mulligan, all those West Coast guys, you know. But Art was a particularly a troubled individual, shall we say. I mean, not because he was a junkie. They're all junkies. I mean, they're all on heroin, all the jazzers in the 50s. It's hard to find one that isn't, you know what I mean? But Art he really had some issues, yeah, and it's just a fantastic book. I mean, if it hadn't been for his Mrs. Laurie, this had never come out. But he spent a lot of time in prison, and he hung around with a lot of ne'er-do-wells, as well as all the top jazzers of the time. And he had an extraordinary, I don't know if you want to call it narcissism or whatever. He's an egomaniac. But he used to, there's whole pages in here where he stands in front of the mirror and he just admires himself and just says how beautiful I am and all this kind of stuff. It's really over the top, you know. But he used to do armed robberies with these nutters, and they wouldn't let Art have a gun because he just wanted to shoot someone. So that gives you an idea of what he's like, right? And it's not an indictment of the jazz world because it's full of ne'er-do-wells, but it really does sum up that whole 50s jazz, heroin, crime, you know, bad stuff going on sort of thing. But with Art, you get the human side of it, you know, and he's open about all his flaws, you know, as well as being the most beautiful man in jazz. Chet Baker does none of this, by the way. Anyway, I thoroughly recommend that. Straight Life. Laura's been trying to make it into a Hollywood film for about 30 years, I think, but they're not going to get anyone to be able to do Art Pepper justice, are they? You know what I mean? So I thoroughly recommend. That's my favourite music book of all time. Well, carrying on with the ne'er-do-wells and the absolute degenerates, Chet Baker, who's absolutely one of my favourites. And the thing with Chet is I like his trumpet playing as much as his voice, you know. It's like the whole package with me. Chet was just one of those typical junkies. Would spin you a story to get money out of you and tell you any old nonsense. You know, a typical junkie. Was a cat burglar. Ignored all his children. You know, treated his children terribly, which is really, you have to do that if you're a proper jazz musician. You have to ignore your children and take lots of dangerous narcotics. Otherwise, you're not really, you know, part of the inner circle, as it were. But he is a truly repulsive individual, Chet Baker. I mean, you listen to those beautiful, beautiful songs that he sang, like an angel, but he is the opposite of an angel. He is a devil. And, you know, people come to his defense and say, oh, he's really not that bad and that, you know, but honestly, he really is one wretched individual. And it doesn't put me off him at all because I love his music and I can separate the art from the artist, you know. I don't put any of these numpties on a pedestal because quite frankly, they don't deserve to be. But anyway, this got really slagged off, this one's James Gavin. There's about 3 or 4 books on him, but this one really got slagged off because he just told the story as it was, you know. So anyway, there you go. Now, this guy, who was in that whole jazz world, actually just before Art Pepper and Chet Baker. But Jimmy Scott, this is a lovely guy, man. This is a lovely guy. You know, this is not a rotten man. This is a guy that stuck to reefer. You know, didn't get into heroin as far as I can see, and was all the better off for it, really. You know, and what does Lou Reed say about him? Lou Reed says, he's Jimmy Scott, the greatest jazz singer in the world. And there you have it. And this is David Ritz. You can look him up. He's written some very good music biographies. And the thing with Jimmy was him and his brother had this condition. Let me see if I can find it in here. Kallman's syndrome. There it is. Kallman's syndrome. They had it's a rare genetic deficiency that disrupts and distorts sexual maturation. So not only does the voice not develop, but genitals and everything. Can you imagine this poor? He was married and everything, so you know he really did have it tough. And yet, was he a horrible man? No, you know. And all his siblings say nice things about him. You know, he's just a terrific guy. And I met him. I met Jimmy, and he's a lovely guy. And if you're into jazz singers, you know, he really is at the top. Okay? Right. This is a really good book on Ray Charles. This is a nice thick tome. It's Mojo, I think, published. Yeah, it's one of the Mojo books, so they're pretty good. Michael Lydon wrote it, and this has got it all in here. The things I found fascinating about Ray was the fact that he was, you know, as a blind junkie, you know, can you imagine? You know, it's hard enough trying to find a vein when you've got perfect eyesight. And when you're blind, you know, it's incredible. And he describes it all the heroin and stuff, and the sex. He writes about sex in the most amazing way, because it's from a blind man's perspective. So all his other senses are on overload. And he used to, when he'd meet a woman, he would take their hand and then he'd put his hand around their wrist. And from the size of their wrist, he could sort of figure out how fat they were. And he could sort of suss out what they were like physically and stuff. It's hilarious, honestly. And he's not a bad guy at all, Ray. You know, he's not a terrible man at all. You know what I mean? I thoroughly enjoyed this. This is a nice thick book, and if you like Ray Charles, it's really a great book. Now this one, I think it's one of the greatest books ever written. Not just music books, and I don't say that lightly, but this is a really excellent book. And if you like the whole interaction between black and white music, blacks and whites living down in the South and often experiencing the same sort of life troubles and etc. This is about the black people who are influenced by country music and rednecks who are influenced by black music, because influences are never a one-way street, are they, you know? And this is Barney Hoskyns. He's written quite a few music books. You might have the one he wrote on LA. He's done one on the Doors and Love and that whole Los Angeles scene. And he's written other ones. But this one, Set One Time for the Broken-Hearted, has one of my favourite chapters on music ever about Solomon Burke. And Solomon Burke was hired by the Ku Klux Klan to do a gig down south. And he was hesitant to do it, but when he found out how much money they were offering and how much they really loved his music, he went along with it. It didn't tell the band, of course. And there's a marvellous scene where the band are all setting up. And then and it's an outdoor gig, and at the bottom of this sort of, not a valley, but it's at the bottom of this hill. And then over the hill come the audience, all the Klan, hundreds of them, kids in little robes and stuff, and all the band are just like looking round at him, going, "What have you got us into?" and all that. Anyway, I won't spoil it for you. Read the chapter. It's one of the best chapters I've ever read on black and white music. And this isn't the sort of stuff they teach you in school, and it goes against all the you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Not political correctness, but the state of the world as it is now. and it's just, well, what can I say? I cannot recommend this book highly enough. The Countryside of Country Soul. Now, another Colin Escott one. I think this is an early edition by Colin. This is with his mate Martin Hawkins, and they're absolute Sun experts. Rather terrible cover, isn't it? You know what I mean? But it's got some nice photos in it. But Colin's the man, knows everything about Sun Records. He really does. And if you want to know about Sun Records and some nice stories in there and stuff, you know, I've mentioned Colin before, but really his books are the best for this kind of music. Now this one is a lady in, now where is it? Scandinavia. It's this lady here. She was a jazzer, and she's in Norway or Sweden. And I can't remember which one it is now. But anyway, she met them all. Norway. That's it, Norway. And all the jazzers that came to Norway in the 50s and 60s, basically, she met them and they all hung out at her pad. And she really writes brilliantly about the people. You know, she's not just into the music, because she had these people in her home, so she's writing about them. It's more of a social biography, you know, but they're all in here. I mean, everyone, Dexter Gordon, you name it, all the ones that came to Europe, they're all in here. And it's got lots of lovely photos, and she actually used to record them in her home. So this has lots of rare recordings on a CD. For jazzers, I would say this is an essential book, you know. I'll just give you a name. Randy Holton. But really great, and also written from a woman's perspective, so it's quite interesting in that respect. Now, into the sort of more reggae scene, although it's not reggae, and this is strictly, he is a poet. This is Linton Kwesi Johnson, but he used to do, I don't know if you ever saw him live, Linton, but he used to do he used to come on with musicians and do this whole like sound system thing where he would recite his poetry and what have you. But this is really terrific. I mean, it's all in patois, so, you know, if you're not familiar with patois, you might find it a little bit hard going, but it's really terrific. Sonny's Letter, one of my favourites. But they're all in here. And if you like a little bit of West Indian culture, and someone who really was a pioneer, Linton Kwesi Johnson, really recommend this one. And then my favourite singer of all time, Little Willie John. This is a really marvellous book, and it's done with his son, I think, Kevin. Yeah, with Kevin. Again, this is written by a woman, so it's quite interesting. Susan Whittle. It's got Stevie Wonder does the introduction, because everyone in Detroit was influenced by Little Willie John. I mean, everyone. And it's got some nice photos in here, even like some early colour ones. Because it's done with his son Kevin, they go right into the family. So you've got lovely photos like this of him with his family and the boys and everything. It's really terrific. His life is just tragic. I mean, you know, he killed a guy and he ended up in prison. And, you know, no fault of his own. It was just a bully, you know. Just a tremendous guy. Really brilliant. It's got, who has it got on the back of this saying how great this is? It's Marvin Gaye. These are all people say how good this book is. Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, James Brown, Sam Moore, Dion, you know, Dave Marsh, another great writer. So if you like Little Willie John, I think this is the only book. But it's really good. And then back in the day, Charlie Gillett used to have a show on the radio where he used to play, I suppose they call it roots music now, or Americana or whatever, but he played blues and country and early rock and roll and all that kind of stuff, Cajun, what have you. But this is a really good book that came out at a time well before the internet, and you could really get information on these people. And this is a really excellent book where he really writes with depth, and with passion, real genuine passion, at a time when people were just sort of listing, you know, the recording sessions, etc., and all the rest of it. He really goes into the human side of it, and it's a sociological sort of study in a way. It tells you a lot about the South and things like that. But Charlie Gillett, he's brilliant, really great guy. And then just to finish off, this isn't a music book, but it's to do with my favourite band, the Velvet Underground. And I don't know if you've ever seen a copy of this, but Venus in Furs, it is the Sakamacok novel. He is indeed the chap who gave his name to masochism, like the Marquis de Sade gave his name to sadism. And this is Marianne Faithfull's great uncle or great grandfather or something? I can't remember. But anyway, Marianne Faithfull was related to this chap, old Leopold, so that probably explains a lot. But shiny. It's all in here. It's proper degenerate behaviour, you know what I mean? But I suppose tame by today's standards. Anyway, Venus in Furs. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. A few books for you, and they really are excellent, and you could do a lot worse than check them out, okay? So, and we'll be back with more. Don't worry, there's plenty here. Okay, so take care. See you soon.